I present you with the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell for May 7th, 2025. Let's go.
Well, we consider tonight the decline of Donald Trump, the decline of what appears to be his mental acuity, the dramatic decline in his popularity and support among voters, the massive disapproval he now faces. And perhaps most importantly, the decline of Donald Trump's power in Congress, especially in the United States Senate, where Donald Trump is now so weak that he is accepting a Republican senator deciding to defeat his nominee for U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump's just accepting that. That is a very dramatic decline in power for Donald Trump in the Senate. That really matters. We will get to that later in our discussions tonight. This is the 26th day in a row in which Donald Trump has come out a total loser in the trade war that he launched, which he promised to end by negotiating 90 international trade deals in 90 days. Donald Trump made that promise 26 days ago and has negotiated exactly 0 trade deals. 0. The Trump score has been 0 every day of his trade war. Presidential failure could not be more vivid than that. And that's Donald Trump's own scorebook for failure. 90 deals in 90 days, that's what he said. He's got 0. Donald Trump now looks and sounds more exhausted of his own trade war and losing his own trade war every day, just exhausted by it. Losing his trade war seems to be aging him more rapidly than he might otherwise be aging now at 78. And Donald Trump is saying things now that he has never said before. Donald Trump appears to be losing more than his trade war. There are public moments now where he seems to be losing his mind, like when he sits beside the Prime Minister of Canada in the Oval Office and he describes his desire to seize control of Canada. We are now in the 7th day of Mental Health Awareness Month, and no one has ever made this country more aware of mental health every day than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is trying to cut over $800 billion from the largest mental health provider in the country, Medicaid. And then, of course, there's Donald Trump's own mental health, which has been called into question since his first presidential campaign, which led a group of 27 psychiatrists to co-author a book published in the first year of the Trump presidency titled The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. 27 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess a president. Some of the co-authors of that book appeared on this program at that time and told us about what they observed in Donald Trump's public behavior that indicated he was possibly suffering from grave conditions, including malignant narcissist and sociopath. They warned us at the time, in that first year of the first Trump presidency, that everything they were seeing and that we were seeing that was problematic in Donald Trump's mental health was only going to get worse. They warned us. They agreed that Donald Trump's mental health could only move in one direction over time in his 70s. They have published new editions of the book in which more and more mental health professionals have joined in the analysis, with the most recent title being The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. 37 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess a president. It could have been mental illness on display when Donald Trump said the "I don't know" heard around the world. That, of course, was on Meet the Press when Donald Trump was asked by Kristen Welker, "Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?" To which he said, "I don't know." Every high school student in America is supposed to know the correct answer to that question, which is, of course, one word: yes. It is too easy a question to ever have appeared on the SATs. But Donald Trump's answer was, "I don't know," which could be a sign of mental illness, or it could be a sign of early stage dementia in a 78-year-old man, or it could simply be the product of a condition that Donald Trump has been exhibiting throughout his public life since long before he got into politics. And that is, of course, Donald Trump's trademark public stupidity. In Donald Trump's case, stupidity is the most innocent explanation for his I don't know. But during Mental Health Month, we have a right to consider other possibilities. One of the possibilities that psychiatrists who considered the case of Donald Trump in their book consider a mental health condition is Donald Trump's public pathological lying. And that could be what's at work in one of the I don't knows Donald Trump said today. Remember, when Donald Trump would say anything to avoid saying I don't know, even though I don't know was almost always the correct answer, when he was asked about any public policy issue, he is, after all, the most ignorant person who has ever won the most votes in the Electoral College. And he is the most governmentally illiterate person who has ever been relevant in any way to the American governing process. And because Donald Trump always knew how ignorant he has always been about every aspect of government, he has always been desperate not to reveal his ignorance. And so he has always thrown a flurry of words when asked questions to which the true answer really would be, I don't know. He always did anything but say, I don't know. Not anymore. Donald Trump said, I don't know, a couple of times today.
Is the administration sending migrants to Libya?
I don't know. You'll have to ask Homeland Security, please.
Now, that one could just be Donald Trump's reflexive pathological lying, which the psychiatrists who co-authored that book say is a part of mental illness. It is also entirely possible that it is an honest answer, that Donald Trump actually has no idea where he is sending people to prisons around the world. Massachusetts federal judge Brian Murphy, who was appointed by President Biden, issued an order today to prevent Donald Trump from trying to deport anyone to a prison in Libya. Judge Murphy had already issued an order stopping the new version of Trump deportations to random countries around the world. Lawyers for some immigrants who were told they were going to be sent to a prison in Libya alerted Judge Murphy as news reports were leaking information about the plan, and Judge Murphy issued his order to prevent any deportation flights to Libya. The New York Times reports the filing came after U.S. officials said on Tuesday that the Trump administration was planning to transfer migrants to Libya on a U.S. military plane. They said the flight could have left as soon as Wednesday. Amnesty International has called the prison where the immigrants would have been sent in Libya a hellscape. Marco Rubio, who believes his route to the next Republican nomination for president depends on how much cruelty he can publicly exhibit, has said this.
Beyond that, and I say this unapologetically, we are actively searching for other countries to take people from third countries. So we are active, not just El Salvador, we are working with other countries to say, we want to send you some of the most despicable human beings to your countries. Will you do that as a favor to us? And the further away from America, the better, so they can't come back across the border. I'm not apologetic about it. We are doing that.
No, we get it. You're not apologetic about it. You're trying to play cruel on TV because you believe that's how you will win the Republican nomination. Donald Trump told the reporter who asked about sending immigrants to Libya today that reporter should ask Homeland Security, and that was it. That was the end of it. Donald Trump didn't have the energy to do a version of his lies about who these people are. Donald Trump didn't bother with the angry retort about all the crimes Donald Trump imagines these people have committed without any evidence or any proof that most of them have ever committed a crime in their lives. Donald Trump didn't have the energy for his own act today. In his 26th day in a row of being a total loser in the trade war that he started, Donald Trump is now choosing to say, I don't know, when he's asked about toys or anything involving children and his tariffs. Donald Trump, who earned the nickname Donnie Two Dolls on this program last week when he said American children should get used to having just 2 dolls under the Christmas tree instead of 30, those are his numbers, which was yet another proof of Donald Trump's utter obliviousness to how life is lived in the country where he is president, especially the way life is lived by children. Even Donald Trump could understand how bad the public reaction was to his 2 dolls idiocy. And so in his next attempt with that sort of question, all he did was raise the number of dolls to 3 or 4 or 5. Those are the numbers he said were possible. And while he was at it, he threw in pencils. No one asked him about pencils, but he said kids should get used to having only 5 pencils instead of, and again, this is a Trump number, 250 pencils, which again demonstrates Donald Trump's utter obliviousness to the life of the American child. On Meet the Press, Donald Trump was outraged at being asked about the rising price of strollers.
Tires, strollers, some clothing in the wake of your tariffs.
Excuse me, that's peanuts compared to energy. Energy is 60% of the cost.
But, sir, you
you
campaigned on a promise to bring prices down on day
Well, I don't know. When
one.
you say strollers are going up, what kind of a thing?
And then he changed the subject. Strollers, what kind of a thing? Question mark. Then he changes the subject. It really sounded like he doesn't know what a stroller is. That's what he meant by what kind of a thing, which is entirely possible. Because even before Donald Trump entered this period of what appears to be possible neurological decline, he lived the kind of rich, ultra self-centered, oblivious life that could make him not know what the word stroller means. That's possible. And later, on that day, on Sunday, on Air Force One, it sure sounded like the word stroller really isn't in Donald Trump's vocabulary.
Inflation's down, all costs are down, everything is down, other than, as Tristan said, the thing that you carry the babies around in, but that's up 3%.
The thing that you carry the babies around in. That's what he just said. It's going up a lot more than 3%, by the way, the thing that you carry the babies around in. Donald Trump wants you to pay more than double for a stroller, 150% more, 145% if it's imported from China. So if you're pregnant right now, tonight, you might not be able to afford a stroller when you really need one. And even if you can't afford one, no matter what the price turns out to be, you might not be able to get one in this country thanks to Donald Trump. The Washington Post reports virtually every car seat, stroller, bassinet, and changing table sold in the U.S. is made in China, making the children's products industry among the most vulnerable to fast rising costs and shortages. But with new tariffs more than doubling the cost of Chinese imports, prices on baby necessities are rising fast, and manufacturers and retailers are suddenly slamming on the brakes, halting months' worth of shipments that economists warn will lead to shortages of strollers, cribs, and other necessities as early as this month. If you're pregnant and your due date is in June or later, Donald Trump is going to make your life more difficult. Infant furniture sold in the U.S. now faces average tariffs of about 129%, according to an analysis by S&P Global Market Intelligence. Other highly taxed items include toys, 113%, and infant clothing, 41%, S&P found. Delta Children, the country's largest crib and children's furniture brand, paused nearly all shipments from China early last month. We're going to end up with bare shelves in another couple of months if things don't change, said Joseph Shami, the president of Delta Children. Bare shelves. So, no car seat for your infant born this summer. We're not talking any longer about the most expensive car seat in history. Yes, that's going to happen. It'll be the most expensive car seat in history. What we're talking about now is running out of them in this country because of Donald Trump's tariffs and no other reason. If Donald Trump had the slightest interest in the needs of the pregnant mothers of America tonight, the new mothers or the mothers of 3-year-olds who are growing out of their car seat into the next size car seat, Donald Trump could reassure all of them. He could reassure all of us and say everything for babies and children is exempt from the Trump tariffs. But you know what he said to those mothers and those fathers? You know what he actually said about this? Donald Trump, once again, said, "I don't know."
The Treasury Secretary just told lawmakers that a tariff exemption for certain baby items like car seats is under consideration. Will you exempt some products that families rely on?
I don't know. I'll think about it. I don't know. I really don't.
That is a beaten man. I don't know. He's giving up. I don't know. He's giving up his performative act of having an answer for everything. Now he's just the I don't know president. And these are very simple questions. It's impossible to ask a president simpler questions than these. Donald Trump's answers are, I don't know. Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is now on record as having said the most inane things ever said by a Secretary of the Treasury, beginning with our first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, who completely disagrees with Donald Trump on tariffs. Scott Bessent said something on television last night about explaining tariffs to a girl who might be required to have only 2 dolls this Christmas thanks to Donald Trump's tariffs. Scott Bessent's answer is one of those parody answers about how to talk to children. It is absurd from start to finish. But as you listen to it, it's worth noting that Scott Bessent and his husband are the fathers of 2 young children, both of whom were in the front row of his confirmation hearing. So this is an experienced father talking here. Here's how Scott Bessent tried to repair the damage his boss, Donnie 2 Dolls, has done.
This reporter behind me was quite snarky the other day when President Trump talked about the girl having 2 dolls. And he said, well, what? President didn't take the question, but he said, what would you tell that girl? And I said, I would tell that young girl that you will have a better life than your parents, that you and your family, thanks to President Trump, can now be confident again that you will have a better life than your parents, which working class Americans had abandoned that idea. Your family will own a home. You will be able to advance. You will have a good education. You will have economic freedom. That's what we are advancing.
Okay, Scott. Your family will own a home. Great. But what about the little girls who think the dolls are coming from Santa Claus? How would you talk to them? How would you explain the tariffs to them? We know how this is going to end. Donald Trump is going to surrender in his trade war and declare victory. Donald Trump is claiming that at the White House tomorrow they will announce, quote, a major trade deal with representatives of a big and highly respected country. So on day 27, when Donald Trump is supposed to have completed 27 trade deals, he's now claiming he will have completed 1, and that will not even be true. Whatever is announced in the Oval Office tomorrow will not be a trade deal. An actual trade deal like NAFTA or the World Trade Agreement or any of the trade deals this country has entered into, including, by the way, Donald Trump's administration's rewrite of NAFTA in Donald Trump's first presidency, are all extremely detailed and lengthy documents in which everything is specified, and all of it has to be voted on and approved by Congress. That is what a trade deal is. And that is not what's going to be announced tomorrow. Donald Trump is losing the trade war. Every country in the world knows Donald Trump is losing the trade war. Every country in the world knows that Donald Trump's tariffs are being challenged in American courts right now. And every country in the world knows they do not have to negotiate a full trade deal with Donald Trump to get Donald Trump to surrender, because virtually all of Donald Trump's tariffs could be on their way to being thrown out by federal courts. Donald Trump has lost every day of his trade war, and he will lose again tomorrow. But he will surely get the more simple-minded sections of the news media to fall for whatever stunt he announces tomorrow. But if anyone asks him what's actually in the so-called deal that he's going to announce tomorrow, don't be surprised if his answer amounts to some variation on, I don't know.
Okay, happy to get you guys caught up on the Lawrence O'Donnell Show for May 7th, 2025. See you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. I ask you guys to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you.